5 Atlanta neighborhoods sit right next to each other, practically touching on a map. But they sell anywhere from the 300s to well over $1 million. That's the gap I'm breaking down today, neighborhood by neighborhood, across some of Atlanta's most sought-after historic areas. I'm Valerie Gonzalez, and after 28 years working in this part of in-town Atlanta, I can tell you the homes alone don't explain the price difference. Virginia Highland. Step off a wraparound porch, walk down a tree-shaded block, and 5 minutes later, you're sitting at a table on North Highland Avenue. That's a regular day for Virginia Highland residents, and it's a big reason this neighborhood costs what it does. Virginia Highland was never planned as one neighborhood. It's made up of at least 18 separate subdivisions laid out over roughly 2 decades, starting in the early 1900s, beginning with developer George Adair's 1904 plan. The 9-mile circle trolley line tied them together. Built in 1889, it ran along what's now Monroe Drive, Virginia Avenue, North Highland Avenue, and Ponce de Leon Avenue. You can still see that history in the street layout. The trolley's turning radius is why the roads curve today instead of following a straight grid. The neighborhood didn't go by the name Virginia Highland until the early 1970s. Residents chose that name while fighting to stop a proposed interstate, I-485, from cutting through the area. That fight is a big reason so many original bungalows are still standing instead of sitting under an overpass. The area gained another layer of protection in 2005 when the Virginia Highland Historic District joined the National Register of Historic Places. Its boundaries grew in 2022 to include the neighborhood's mid-century apartment buildings. That history also shows up in the homes. Craftsman bungalows lead the mix here, with English cottages, American foursquares, and colonial revival homes throughout the neighborhood. The original lots were laid out small and close together. That helps make the area feel compact and walkable, but it also makes parking near the shops and restaurants tough on a Friday night. Later, I'll show you another neighborhood where you can get similar historic charm for much less, and it may not be the one you expect. The mix of homes can also make prices confusing for buyers. Depending on the site you check, the reported number can swing from month to month. Only a few homes may sell at once, so one high-priced sale can change the whole average. Once you look past that, detached historic homes tend to sell from the low 700s into the 900s. The largest and most updated homes can surpass 2 million. Numbers that include condos and smaller units may fall into the high 400s or low 500s because the district also has older apartment buildings. Homes still move fast when the price makes sense. Price isn't the only trade-off here. The energy along North Highland Avenue comes with one too. The restaurants and bars make the neighborhood feel lively, but homes close to the strip may hear more noise on weekend night. Walk the block after dark before you commit to an address here. Once you move away from the busiest blocks, this is also an easy neighborhood to explore on foot. The Beltline's East Side Trail runs along the western edge toward Piedmont Park, Midtown, and Ponce Highland. Orm Park sits inside the historic district. It's a shaded pocket park from the 1920s with a small stream and a stone footbridge. The mature tree canopy above it comes from plantings that began nearly a century ago. The neighborhood also has an active civic group behind it. The Virginia Highland Civic Association runs Virginia Highland Summerfest each year and maintains a formal neighborhood master plan. That care helps protect the character buyers are willing to compete for. One trade-off to know up front is that the area doesn't have its own MARTA rail station. Residents depend on driving, biking, the Beltline, or a bus connection to get around. You still get strong walkability inside the neighborhood, but rail access may matter if you use MARTA often. Real quick, before we move on, if you're thinking about moving to one of these 5 historic neighborhoods, I help relocating buyers compare these details every week. My contact information is in the description below. Now, let's head a few blocks north where space and privacy start to take over. Morningside. That quieter, more private place is Morningside, and the change is easy to feel. Turn off North Highland Avenue and the noise starts to fade as the streets settle into a more residential pace. Officially called Morningside Lenox Park, the neighborhood came together around 1923 when several smaller subdivisions merged. These included Lenox Park, University Park, Noble Park, Johnson Estates, and Highland Park. Virginia Highland grew from separate plans, while Morningside was laid out with more structure from the start. You can feel that as soon as you turn down one of its streets. The neighborhood also had its own fight against I-485. The Morningside Lenox Park Association took the proposed expressway to court, and a federal ruling in late 1971 required an environmental review that stopped the project. Georgia's governor made the decision final in 1975 by removing the highway from the map. Without that fight, the wide wooded streets you see today might not exist in the same way. The homes carry that same feeling. The architecture includes Tudor Revival, English and French Vernacular Revival, Craftsman and Colonial Revival homes. They usually sit on larger, more wooded lots than the homes in the other neighborhoods on this list. That extra land helps explain why this place has the highest typical entry price of the 5. Homes sell for a minimum of $1 million. The market has also slowed from a year ago, so buyers may have a little more room to negotiate. But like any neighborhood, living here comes with a trade-off. This is more of a residential place with fewer shops and restaurants inside the neighborhood. Many interior blocks aren't close enough for daily errands on foot. Most of the commercial activity sits along North Highland Avenue near the edges. There's also no MARTA rail station inside the neighborhood, so dinner may be a short drive instead of a walk. Buyers moving from a more walkable part of the city should think about that before choosing the home based on lot size alone. In return, you get quiet streets just a few minutes from Midtown, Emory, Buckhead, and Piedmont Park. Morningside Nature Preserve covers roughly 33 acres inside the neighborhood and has unpaved trails. The Morningside Lenox Park Association also keeps the area's history alive, including a published neighborhood walking tour. It shows how much care residents put into protecting the neighborhood's character. Now, we're heading to a neighborhood where the architecture alone can stop you on the sidewalk. Inman Park. In 1889, a civil engineer named Joel Hurt bought more than 130 acres east of downtown Atlanta and built something Atlanta had never seen before, its first planned suburb. He connected it to downtown with one of the country's first electric streetcar lines. Then he hired landscape designer Joseph Forsyth Johnson to lay out the curving streets and the roughly 10-acre Springvale Park at the center, later refined by the Olmsted brothers. You can still see part of Hurt's original vision today. Asa Candler's Cowan Castle, one of the neighborhood's first showpieces, still stands beside the Beef Dickey House. That early design later became part of Inman Park's historic district, which joined the National Historic Register in July 1973, exactly 53 years ago today. Its protections grew again in 2001 to include the bungalows built on smaller lots along the edges of Hurt's original plan during the 1920s and 1930s. That later growth helps explain why the architecture here is so varied. Grand Queen Anne, stick and shingle style mansions from the 1890s stand beside smaller craftsman bungalows built decades later. Of course, historic protection only matters because residents worked to save these homes in the first place. After decades of decline in the mid-1900s, preservationist Robert Griggs and his partner Robert Aiken bought and restored the Beef Dickey House. That project helped start the neighborhood's restoration movement and later led to the Inman Park Festival and Tour of Homes. That focus on preservation has shaped every neighborhood we've covered so far. The last one on this list, though, didn't receive local protection until 2020. In Inman Park, that history also shapes what buyers pay. Public data puts detached historic homes generally in the high 700s range, with the largest, most updated properties running well past $1 million. Condos and smaller attached homes near the Beltline can pull the overall numbers down into the mid-6s and 700s. Homes here usually move fast when they're priced right. Buyers should also know that the average shown on a search site may not reflect what a fully renovated Victorian will cost. cost. The location adds another layer to the price. The Inman Park Reynoldstown MARTA station sits along the neighborhood's southern edge, while the Beltline East Side Trail runs along its western border. That gives residents both rail and trail access depending on where they're going. There's also green space woven through the neighborhood. Springvale Park, Delta Park, and part of Freedom Park sit inside or beside it, so you're never far from a park as you move through the Victorian streets. From there, the neighborhood connects easily to some of Atlanta's best-known gathering spots. Krog Street Market sits in the old warehouse area near the Krog Street Tunnel, a well-known street art landmark that connects Inman Park with Cabbagetown and Reynoldstown. Little Five Points sits along Moreland Avenue at the line between Inman Park and Candler Park. Its shops, music venues, and restaurants are close by without putting you right in the busiest blocks. That energy peaks every spring when the Inman Park Festival and Tour of Homes takes over the neighborhood. It's billed as Georgia's largest all-volunteer festival with a self-guided home tour and live music across multiple stages. The crowds and tight parking that come with older lots are part of living here. Buyers who choose this neighborhood often see that as a fair trade for architecture you won't find anywhere else on this list. The next neighborhood has a different beginning. It started as its own town before Atlanta grew around it. Candler Park. Candler Park wasn't part of Atlanta during its first decade as an incorporated town. It began as Edgewood, an independent community that grew along the Georgia Railroad tracks in the 1870s. It incorporated in the late 1890s and joined the city of Atlanta around 1908 to 1909. Federal preservation records describe it as an example of something that happened across Georgia, where an expanding city slowly absorbed a nearby town. That gives this neighborhood a different beginning from Inman Park, which was planned from day one. The name came later. The 55-acre park at the center grew from land that Coca-Cola's Asa Candler began donating to the city in the early 1920s. That same era shaped the homes around it. Craftsman bungalows defined much of the neighborhood, along with Queen Anne cottages, folk Victorian homes, and American foursquares. The area went through a period of decline starting in the 1950s before later restoration brought back much of its original character. The median has been running around the mid-800s, but that number hides a lower entry point. Public data shows a wide spread in this neighborhood with a mix of homes at around the high 300s into the 500s and larger renovated properties selling well above that. Homes here have also been moving fast, so buyers looking at that lower price range need to act when the right one comes up. Walkability changes from block to block. Some streets are close enough to the shops and the park for most errands on foot. Others may require a short drive. One clear advantage is direct MARTA rail access, which Virginia Highland and Morningside don't have inside their boundaries. The park adds even more to daily life. It has a public golf course, a seasonal pool, tennis courts, and a playground. Its paths also connect with Freedom Park's walking and biking route through a partnership between the city and the Neighborhood Conservancy. The boundaries can get a little blurry when these neighborhoods sit so close together. People often group the historic Plaza Theater with this area, but it sits just across the line in the next neighborhood on our list. It's also close enough to Decatur and its sister neighborhood, Lake Claire, that all three can feel like one connected area. That mix of rail access, park space, and a lower entry price is why I'd call this the most underrated value on the list. It comes up a lot when buyers tell me they want the bungalow lifestyle without the Virginia Highland price tag. The market can still shift from month to month because only a few homes may sell at once. New infill construction is also starting to change some of the original blocks. That brings us to the final neighborhood, where the mix of homes and historic protection looks different from everything we've covered so far. Ponce Highland. This is the neighborhood I mentioned earlier, the one that didn't receive local historic protection until 2020. That makes it the newest historic district of the 5, even though the area itself is just as old as the others. Its residential streets grew from subdivisions built mostly between the 1910s and 1940s. At the same time, an industrial area took shape along the railway from the mid-1920s through the mid-1950s. The biggest piece of that history is the 9-story building Sears, Roebuck and Company built in 1926 as a regional retail and distribution center. Sears closed the store in the late 1970s, but kept a regional office there for years. The city of Atlanta later used part of the building before developer Jamestown opened in phases starting around 2014 to 2015. That project gave new life to one of the city's best-known industrial buildings and changed how people saw this whole part of Atlanta. That mix of residential and industrial history still shapes the homes here. Historic single-family houses sit beside old warehouses turned into lofts, along with newer condo buildings. Because of that mix, the housing feels less uniform than it does in Virginia Highland or Inman Park. It also creates the lowest typical entry point on this list. Condos run from the 300s into the 500s, while detached homes and larger attached units can pass 1 million, depending on size and condition. Homes here also tend to stay on the market longer, so buyers may have more time than they would in Candler Park or Inman Park. The main avenue through the area carries heavy traffic, and life along that stretch feels different from life on the quieter interior streets. Buyers also need to understand the gap between a condo and a detached home because they can feel like two very separate markets. In return, you get strong access to the rest of the city. Ponce City Market sits along one of the busiest parts of the Beltline East Side Trail, and Freedom Park borders the neighborhood. The Plaza Theater has been open since 1939 and is still Atlanta's longest-running independent movie theater. You're also a short walk from Virginia Highland, Inman Park, Old Fourth Ward, and Midtown. That mix of old homes, converted buildings, and easy access gives Ponce Highland its own place among these 5 historic neighborhoods. Each of these 5 neighborhoods comes down to which part of Atlanta's history you want to live with every day. Once you look at them that way, the price differences start to make a lot more sense. If one of these areas has your attention, reach out. My contact information is below, and I can show you what's available in your price range before the best options are gone. That kind of head start can make a real difference when the right home comes up. And if you love this walkable, historic, in-town lifestyle, but you're still deciding between staying inside the perimeter or moving further out for more space, watch the video linked on screen. I break down why the old suburban price advantage has started to fade and what that means for your move. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.